morning. Shall we say good morning to each other? Okay. What do we do today? It's been a while, huh? Do you know which chapter we are in? No? Yes? No? Chapter 45, right? Chapter 45. Is Abby here? Abigail? Okay, so I have two of your questions, very old questions. Do you remember? Okay, give Abby the mic, please. Okay, Genesis 40. Why does the cupbearer get upgraded to a new position in Pharaoh's kingdom, but the baker ends up being impaled? Do you remember that question? It's coming. Yes? No?
Um, yeah, I don't remember that.
You don't remember that?
No.
This is you, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was so long ago. I don't remember. Wait, what does the question say? Sorry, I can't read it. That's why.
Well, it's not my fault you're sitting so far behind. What does it say? Can you read it?
No.
No? You need glasses.
No, I forgot mine.
Yeah? You surely need glasses.
I have them.
Okay. You have glasses?
Yeah, but not
Oh,
with me.
okay. In Genesis 40, why does the cupbearer get upgraded to a new position in Pharaoh's kingdom, but the baker ends up being impaled? Does the Bible ever mention why these two people had these different dreams? No? We forget it? Next? Okay, next. She doesn't remember. How about this one? Is it big enough for you?
Perfect. This is my second question.
Yes. No, remember?
Sorry, can you read it?
No?
Sorry, can you read it?
Me reading it to you?
Yes. I'm sorry, I forgot my glasses.
On that same night, I will pass through Egypt and strike down every firstborn, or both people and animals, and I will bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord. The blood will be a sign for you on the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you. Doesn't God already know who he should pass by and not kill, and those he should kill? What was the purpose of putting blood on the door frames?
Yeah, I remember this one.
Okay, well, I'm glad. So, what was the question?
So, this is when um, this time's Pharaoh said that he was gonna, or God said that he was gonna kill all the firstborns, and so he said, this is when they were putting the blood of the lamb on the door frames, so that when the spirit um, passes by, or when God passes by, that house will be, I guess, like protected or saved. Like no one will die, basically. Um, so my question was, what was the purpose of the the blood on the door frame? Because doesn't God already know who should be, who he should pass by and who he should kill?
I don't get the question yet.
So they put the blood to like be like, oh, this house is this one you can pass by. The one that doesn't have the blood is, oh, I need to go. This house, these people need to be killed. But then, what was the purpose of even putting the blood on the door frame? Like, doesn't God just already know, like, he needs to pass by this house, he shouldn't have to pass by this house? And
Oh, I see. So the blood on the post is for God to see that this house is good, and this is how, if there is no blood, this is a bad house. So we're going to go in and kill everybody. So it supposes that God does not know who occupies the house until he sees the blood on the doorpost or not. Yeah. What do you think? So you know the story. This is the 10th and final miracle of the Moses before the Pharaoh let the people of Israel go, right? Free them. Um, by the way, when the reason why they put the blood is when I guess the spirit of the God that is going to destroy the firstborn of all the entire earth come down and see the blood on the doorpost, he goes over the house. Hence the word Passover. Okay, that's why they say Passover. We pass over. Okay, so what do you think? Why do they need to put blood on their doorpost? Huh? To show obedience. To show obedience. Yeah, to show obedience. What do you think? Abby, is that good enough answer to you?
obedience to what exactly?
Or obedience to what exactly, John? Obedience to God. So said John. What do you think? Okay, you going to take that? Well, the question is, doesn't God know people's heart already? Does God know or not? Then what is the necessity to put blood on the doorpost? God already knows. He comes down and just, does he need to see the sign so that, this one is Egyptian and this one is Israelites? Then what is the purpose? What was the reason? To show Egyptians. To show Egyptians that this is the house of the Israel and this is not house of Israel. There comes the future pastor, man. Everything about Jesus. Sort of, kinda. But Abby's question was, doesn't God already know? Same thing. God knows everything, right? So God knows who's saved and who's not saved. Yes or no? Well, then do we need to, witness to anybody? What do you think? Why do we need to witness? Because if God knows and if God already foreordained that this person is going to go to heaven, then what am I to do? What is the purpose of me telling, gospel to anybody or witnessing to anybody? What is the purpose? I think that's the question, basically. Or, does God know your heart, our heart? Well, what do we need to pray? Does he know what kind of situation am I in? Does he know what I want? Yeah, what do I need to pray then? Well, does God know that, people have faith and people don't have faith? And, why do we need to come to church if he knows? To show his glory? To show his glory as if he's lacking glory. He's a glory deficient disease. If I give him glory, would he be more glorified? Then why do we need to do all that? It's one answer. Because God knows, but I don't. But I don't know anything. I don't know my future, Even though these people, they have to put the blood, God knows who they are, but they need to do something. They need to do something to to secure their own heart that I know I'm doing this. Does that make sense? Why do we need to preach or why do we need to witness to anybody? Because God already preordained people to be saved. Why do we need to do that? Because God knows, but I don't know. I am the one who doesn't know, so I have to just tell everybody. It is God who will determine who's going to be saved and who's not going to be. It is not I who's going to be saved, who's not going to be saved. So basically, we don't, because I don't know. God knows, but I don't know. So I have to do all that, because if I don't do it, that shows that I don't believe it. Right? God knows already. If we start thinking what God knows, there's no end to it. Right? But the only problem is, you and I have no knowledge of God. We don't know what God is thinking. So only thing what we do is, I know what I know. So I have to do all that just to check and show my heart. So turn to each other and say, where's your heart? It's very difficult to tell, until and unless you really shows up as an action. It's really difficult. Does that answer your question? Because they didn't know, but by putting the blood on the doorpost, they know now I'm an Israelite. Now, what do you think? What if Egyptian put a blood on the doorpost? Would he be saved? Yes or no? Yes. Yes. According to movie, 10 Commandments, there were some Egyptians who were saved among. There were few Egyptians. In fact, Bible talks about few Egyptians being saved and come to the wilderness with the Israelites. Oh, very interesting. Very interesting. But anyways, see, it's not just because you are an Israelite or Egyptian. It is, do you know that you are going to follow God? That's the most important question. It's not the genealogy of a person, physical, biological genealogy. It is the heart genealogy. Okay? Along to that question, my wife's been talking about Luke chapter 17 last few days, right? I can't believe it's already Thursday. Tomorrow is it's like, oh my goodness. This year goes really fast for you already? It's going, oh my goodness, so fast. Anyways, Luke chapter 17, when she picked that story up, I was startled because that chapter or that story is notoriously difficult. At the beginning, you just read it. It's a very simple story. 10 people got saved and only one came back. Rest of 9 is sagaji. That's all. That's period. That's just end of the story. Okay. But if you really go inside and read it, it's very difficult. So I'm going to show you. Let me, since we have some time, I'm going to show you some of these stories. So. So this is the story that story of 10 lepers. Okay, 10 lepers. Now on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." When he saw them, he said, "Go show yourselves to the priest." And they went. They were cleansed. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back, praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. Jesus asked, "Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner or Samaritan?" Then he said to him, "Rise and go. Your faith had made you well." Now, in English translation is fairly understandable, but it loses a lot of meaning. Let me ask you this. let's go verse 19. So then he said to him, rise and go, your faith has made you well. Now, what do you mean by well? Well, the Bible is very careful in that. Let's look at verse 15. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back praising God in a loud voice. Now, if he means the physical healing from leprosy, you know what leprosy is, right? When it was healed, leprosy being healed, verse 19 should have gone this way. Then he said to him, rise and go, your faith had healed you. Very simple, right? If Jesus is meaning healing of his body, does he mean healing of his body? What do you think? Huh? Well, if not, what is he meaning? Well, this whole thing, it is in the original language is very strange. It's called saved. It's called saved, salvation, basically, salvation. So then he said to him, rise and go, your faith had saved you. If you have a Korean Bible, that's correct. Korean Bible translate as you are saved. English Bible cannot say that. Why? When English Bible says you are saved, what does that mean to all of us? Oh, well, I am going to go to heaven. In other words, when word saved is used, it is me receiving Holy Spirit and believing in Jesus and going to heaven. In other words, healing of my spirit, healing of my spirit. That's what we usually tie into with salvation. Oh my God. And English Bible, NIV, or the rest of the Bible cannot say healed because it doesn't mean healed. It means, they say you well. What do you mean well? Well means, am I being physically well? Well, if it is physically well, then what happened to 9? He said, rise and go, your faith had healed you. Then the other 9 had faith or not? Well, how many were healed? All 10 of them, right? So Jesus said, your faith had healed you, right? Then all 10 of them were healed. So all 10 of them had a faith, right? Is that story trying to tell that? It's not, right? It's like, I don't think Jesus is trying to say, well, let me ask you another question. What does this mean? Faith. Who has faith? On what? So this person who came back, what do you mean by faith? What is the contents of this person's faith? Healing. So if I believe that that you can heal me, then all 10 of them have it? What do you think? I mean, logically, if your faith had healed you, then we would say, then all of them had a faith because they all were healed. Or you could say, well, this one got healed according to his faith, and rest of 9, the Sagaji, were healed by Jesus, his power. That's not really a good interpretation of the Bible, right? So how would you, this is a very difficult, if you go in there and you start splitting hair and you say, what does he mean? Because he clearly says you are saved or salvation. You are well. So what do you mean well? What do you mean well? Well, in order to understand it, we have to go to the beginning. Now, when I go, on the Monday, when my wife said, Luke chapter 17, the 10 leprosy, go, 10 leprosy. That's a very, very heavy verse, okay? Now on his way to Jerusalem, so Jesus is going toward Jerusalem. Northbound, southbound? Southbound. Very good. Southbound. So from Galilee to Jerusalem is going south. Okay, as if Los Angeles to Irvine. Okay. Now on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. Now somehow Luke is very careful in that Jesus is not going through the Galilee, not through Samaria, but in between. In between. Okay. Why Samaria? What do we know about Samaria? Oh, woman at the well or Samaria. Who are the people of Samaria? Foreigner. Don't say foreigners. Okay, please. If you say to a Samaritan that you are a foreigners, they might kill you. Because people who lives in Samaria, they consider themselves as foreigners. Those of you who are hometown is Gyeongsangdo. If I say, "Oh, Gyeongsangdo is not Korean," how would you say? Say what the? Huh? When you say that, so Samaria, even though they have a shady background, that's what we know, right? So people among the Israelites, they are looked down. They're looked down upon, right? And Galilee are the regular Israelites. So he's going in between. So he's going in between. In other words, he's trying to compare these two people group, right? Okay. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. What a village? What village? Leprosy. Okay. This is a leper colony. Okay. So evidently, Galilee and Samaria, in between, they built a small village for the leprosy, right? Leprosy. Because you don't live at home if you have a leprosy. You have to go to a leper colony, right? So as he was going into a village, evidently a leper colony, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance. Why at a distance? They are dangerous? Contagious. They are contagious. If you are a leper, would you care you are contagious or not? I agree they are contagious. But there is another reason why they are standing very far away. Ceremonially unclean, but this is not a temple. Yes, they are ceremonially unclean, but no need to stand afar because they are ceremonially unclean. What if they get closer? Other people don't like them. That sounds such a silly. Other people don't like them. Other people don't like them, I agree. In fact, other people don't like them enough to stone them. They have a right to stone them. Okay, they will throw stone at them, because knowing that they are contagious, by law they can be stoned. So they are standing far, away from Jesus. Okay, call out in loud voice, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." When he saw them, he said, "Go show yourselves to the priest." Why? Now, Andrew. Good. See, once you have a leprosy, you cannot see people, you cannot mingle with other people until you are healed. How do you know you are healed? Who determines you are healed? The priest. Okay, so if your wound or skin is clean, then you have to go to priest. Why? Because if you have a leprosy, you are ceremonially unclean, so you cannot go to temple. You cannot go to temple. If you have leprosy, you cannot do two things, or among many other things, but two things notoriously. What are they? Number one, you cannot go to temple. Number two, cannot join in a community. Yes, not even a family. You cannot live at home. Okay, so you are completely outcast, completely isolated. So, you have to live in the leper colony. Okay, so you cannot go home. You cannot see your loved ones, and then you cannot go to temple. These are the two things that are very, very important to a person, right? Okay, so he said, go show yourselves to the priest. Meaning, I'm going to heal you, so you just go get a okay from priest. Okay, that's what it means. And as they went, they were healed or cleansed. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back, praising God in a loud voice. So where did 9 go? Huh? Where did 9 go? Now, if you have a leprosy, where would you go? You go to family? You wouldn't go to family. Party? If you have a leprosy, where would you go first? It's in here. You have to go, you go to priest. Look, I'm healed, right? And then where would you go? Then family, right? That's a normal course of person's action, okay? This one person didn't do that. See, before he went to the temple, before he went to his family, he came back to Jesus. As soon as he realized he's healed, okay? In other words, he didn't care whether he was approved by the priest or not, whether he could see his wife or husband or family or children or not. He came back to Jesus. Why did he do that? Because his gladness, his appreciation, his thankful heart was greater than the other two. That's an amazing, that's a shocking event. I don't know how many of us would come back to Jesus. I don't know how many of, if you and I had a leprosy, leprosy is like modern day AIDS. AIDS, full-blown AIDS. Full-blown AIDS, you have, rashes everywhere, you have tumors, everything. So everybody knows you have AIDS. And once you are healed, would you come to church to give thanks? First thing to do. That's a very difficult assumption, isn't it? We would go to family. Look, I'm healed. Or we go to work or, anywhere else. But this guy came back to Jesus before he went to temple, before he went. So Jesus said, this is what Jesus is saying. Looking that, he said, then he said to him, rise up and go. Now you can go. Okay, now you can go. Your faith has made you well. Now, what does this made you well mean? Well, very simple. Just assume that if you have leprosy, just assume that you have just horrible problem. Would your soul well? Would be terribly stressed, wouldn't it? You are terribly anguished. You are terribly, angry. You're terribly upset, depressed, all that, right? And then he said, all those are now gone. You are saved. You're saved. In other words, your problem days are now over. Over. Okay? Your problem days are over. Now, once you understand it, then you say, okay, then what is his faith? Now, how did Jesus know? Or why is Jesus saying that he had faith? Is he just saying that, this leper happened to know Jesus passing by and, that's the famous guy and he can heal me. Now that can be a faith. If that is that, then, all 10 of them did same thing, right? Obviously, this story is not talking about that kind of faith. What kind of faith is this story is trying to say? Is that a faith that is expressed in behavior. That's what he's saying. Seeing that you come back, okay, having, this thankful heart, coming back and kneeling in front of Jesus, that's the faith. Okay? People who goes to church, people who's been in church for many, many years, they can all say, I have faith. You have faith, yeah. But what is the faith? The faith is that expressed, through the action, through the action. And once you have that faith that can be expressed in your action, then all the other things that has been bothering you, that will go away. Does that make sense? That's what he's saying. Your faith, your heart, your attitude, your mindset, that's what my wife was trying to say, is going to make you well. That mindset equals, wellness of soul. I mean, people talk about this sadness, this stress, this problem here and there. We all hear those things, and we wonder how that go away. And people come to church and have faith. And most of the people say, "Oh, I do have faith, and I still have problem." I mean, that's usually the common, conclusion. But that's not what Bible is trying to say. That faith that shows, that pushes the urgency to go to temple, or the urgency to go to house, the urgency to go and visit my parents. Push that away and come to Jesus to express my gratitude. That's the faith. Does that make sense? Huh? And that faith made you, well, your soul, your days of problem is over now. Showing that, from now on, your problem is over. That's what he's saying. I mean, yes, leprosy has been healed also. But I always wondered, so people who are stressed all have leprosy. Yes or no? No. I mean, people who are well with a, clear baby skin, people have, incredible amount of problems. And, we suffer so much, anguish and problems without leprosy. So all these 10 people who had leprosy, and now they are healed. All of them have lived now, happily ever after. I'd say no. They would have same problem as all of us who never had a leprosy. Their problem days are not over. Only one. This guy's problem days are over. And that's what Jesus is trying to say that. So faith is not that, I'm believing it. And I think that's why many times we see Christians try to produce this, manufacture this faith. You can try to manufacture faith as, until cows come home. You cannot do that. We cannot manufacture faith. It's only when our behavior expresses that faith. That's how we know. That's how we know. Now, that same thing goes to Joseph's story. Okay, now remember we're going to chapter 45. Very interesting. This chapter 45 story is really interesting in that, have you ever heard about revenge stories? This is a perfect setting for revenge. Do you know any famous revenge stories? Huh? What? What did she say? Old Boy. Yes, that's an old Korean movie. Yes. Old Boy. Yes. Anything? Do you know any American? Anybody? John Wick. Yeah, revenging his dog. Yes. A little more classic. Anybody reading classics like Shakespeare? Macbeth and Hamlet are famous revenge stories. How about modern day classics? John Wick, yeah. So, here Joseph is now, a very powerful person, and he's now in position to have revenge. Does he do the revenge? Wow, that's very difficult, because have you ever been wronged? And when people get wronged, we always have this vengefulness. We want to pay them back, right? But I cannot pay them back. Now I'm weakened. But wait until I grow up. I'm going to show you. And that's usually the story, right? So let's dive into chapter 45, okay? Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, "Have everyone leave my presence." So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. Now. And he wept so aloud that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. Now, I always wonder, where does Joseph live? Very close to Pharaoh's palace, right? I mean, I don't know how loud Joseph's wailing can be. I mean, it gotta be. Which means Joseph's position is mighty high. It'll show you eventually. Let me show you. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living?" Now I have a question. How many years has it been since they seen Joseph? Long, yes, long. Long. A little bit scientific. A little bit specific. How many years would that be? 17? 17? Would you share your conclusion of 17? How you got the 17 years? Huh? Two years, two brothers come back. Yeah, 17. Another 15. Okay, 15. Where'd that 15 come from? Huh? Okay, any other taking? Good famine? 20 years. 2 years, 5. Okay, very simple. Let me give you a hint. Okay? How old was Joseph when he was picked up by Pharaoh? Not 17, okay? 30. Okay, so 7 years famine and 2 years of what's the opposite of famine? Good time. Is there any proper English for famine and prosperity? Abundant. Any farmers here? Huh? Harvest. Bounty. Harvest. So let me give you a hint. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living?" But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come close to me." When they had done so, he said, "I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now there has been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years there will be no plowing and reaping." How old is Joseph now? 39. Would you agree to that? 39. When did brothers saw Joseph for the last? When they sold off? 17. So how many years has it been? Is that so difficult? 39 minus 17. You need a calculator? 22 years, right? It's been 22 years they've seen. So if you don't see your brother for 22 years, would you recognize him? Yeah? Yes? No? Man, if I don't see you for 2 years, I wouldn't recognize you. Did I tell you the story? I before I got married, I had a girlfriend in Korea, and when she came back, I couldn't recognize you. Who are you? So if you don't show up for church for 2 weeks, I'll forget. Okay, then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come close to me." When they had done so, he said, "I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." Now, who can say these things? Would you be able to say it? We should say, hell no. Really. I mean, imagine you are wronged so that you went through, terrible life for 2 years. Would you let go? I mean, do you know the story of Monte Cristo? Yeah, Monte Cristo. He was jailed wrongly, and then he found the treasure, and then he comes back after he's a classic revenge story. The twist of revenge story, and I'm gonna kill every single one of you in your family, and then that's usually the revenge. Is it okay to revenge? Be careful how you answer it. Is it okay to revenge? Is it okay to let go these people who've done so wrong? Is it okay not to punish these brothers who done so bad? Imagine for 22 years they cheated their father. Every single morning they said, can you imagine Jacob? Every morning, Joseph, my Joseph, for 22 years. And they all knew, they all knew. If they had just one word to say, "Oh, Dad, he's not dead," it'll solve everything. Every single one of them knew. For 22 years, they didn't say that. Now, that's evil. Should we punish them? That's what he's doing, letting them go free. "And now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourself for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." That's Joseph. That's called faith. Remember the action? Remember the attitude that produces certain action? That shows that your trouble days are over. Joseph's trouble days are over because of his action that came from his heart. Thankfulness, glad or appreciation or thanksgiving or whatever is equal to forgiving. People who are so thankful can only forgive. Those two kind of go hand in hand. Joseph was so thankful that he was able to forgive his brothers. This story really shows how Jesus is letting us go. Should we be punished for our own deeds, wrong deeds? And for God to say, "If you just put the blood on the doorpost, I will pass over." Is that ethically correct? People who done wrong, can they be just let go for free by just believing it? Human ethics would not allow that. Only God ethics. Only God can say, I will forgive you. If you believe me, I will forgive you. And that's all. That's why you and I can sit here. For 2 years now, there has been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years, there will be no plowing and reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. Do you know this whole story began as saying this is the story of Jacob, right? Story of Jacob. This is the story. We are focusing on Joseph here, but the entire story is about Jacob. Now, can you imagine Jacob? Jacob thinks that Joseph is dead now, and Benjamin is almost dead, and all his children are gone, and the famine has hit. So all he's saying, this is the worst time of my life. And God is saying, your best time is about to begin. Turn to each other and say, your best time is about to begin. Because, verse 9, now hurry back to my father and say to him, this is what your son Joseph says. God has made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down to me. Don't delay. Now imagine, all he's saying is heard by Pharaoh, right? Imagine if you are a vice president, and the hearing of the president, he says, God has made me Lord over the president. Now or God had made me Lord of this company. That's a very dangerous statement. This shows how powerful Joseph's position is. Okay, imagine verse 10. You shall live in the region of Goshen and be near me. In other words, Joseph already knew where they're going to live. You know where Goshen is? Huh? It's Gangnam. Do you know Gangnam? Do you know Beverly? What is that? Is it Beverly Hill? The Beverly Hill of Egypt. Everybody know Goshen. Goshen is where the Alexandria Delta of the Nile is. That's like Beverly Hill of Egypt. He already chosen it. You, your children and grandchildren, your flocks and herds, all you live. I have provided for you there because 5 years of famine are still to come. Otherwise, you and your household and all who belong to you will become destitute. You can see for yourselves, and so can my brother Benjamin, that it is really I who am speaking to you. Tell my father about all the honor accorded me in Egypt and about everything you have seen. And bring my father down here quickly. Then he threw his arms around his brother Benjamin and wept. And Benjamin embraced him and weeping. Verse 14, you know what they are doing? For you all know. You know what they're doing? Abrazo, yes, abrazo. This is abrazo, man. I explain that to you every time when we do abrazo, right? In Egypt, in Israel, they have a custom, when they all come in, they hug each other. Don't I say that? That's what this is. They are doing the abrazo. IGL number 25. And he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. Afterward, his brothers talked with him. When the news reached Pharaoh's palace that Joseph's brothers had come, Pharaoh had all his officials were pleased. Pharaoh said to Joseph, tell your brothers, do this. Load your animals and return to the land of Canaan, and bring your father and your families back to me. I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you can enjoy the fat of the land. Joseph already done that. But, Joseph's position is powerful. You are also directed to tell them, do this. Take some carts from Egypt for your children and your wives, and get your father and come. Never mind about your belongings, because the best of all Egypt will be yours. So the sons of Israel did this. Joseph gave them carts as Pharaoh had commanded, and he also gave them provisions for their journey. To each of them he gave new clothing, but to Benjamin he gave 300 shekels of silver and 5 sets of clothes. So he had to wear the winter clothes. And this is what he sent to his father: 10 donkeys loaded with best things of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain and bread and other provisions of his journey. Then he sent his brothers away, and as they were leaving, he said to them, listen what Joseph said to his older brothers: don't quarrel on the way. Why would you say that? Huh? Because Joseph knows his brothers, they are going to fight. Why? What are they going to fight about? Stupid things. So they went up out of Egypt and came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan. They told him, Joseph is still alive. In fact, he is ruler of all Egypt. Jacob was stunned. He did not believe them. You know, if I were Jacob, do you know what I would do right here? Huh? What? Huh? Oh, I wouldn't slap them. I would line them up, take out my shotgun, and blow their little fingers. Imagine, I mean, we don't have this real sense of wrong here. For 22 years, I mean, he's Jacob's best of the best child, okay, was wronged, and he led to believe that Joseph was eaten by animals, okay? And do you think Joseph ever threw away that cloak with blood for 22 years? He probably kept it in his bosom. You know, I mean, on the corner, every single day he would see, you know, my son was eaten by animals. My son was eaten for 22 years. And all these 10 sons, they knew the answer. You know, they cheated, they wronged his father. And now he said, oh, Joseph is alive. I would just take out my, I don't know, baseball bat and just break their legs. Imagine. But Jacob didn't do that. Do you know why? Because his troubled days are over. Think about it. Up until this moment, Jacob's life was one misery. I mean, one miserable life. Imagine all those stresses with 4 wives and 10 children and all his uncles and all his, you know, his brother Esau and all that. He's stressful. His life was stressful. And then from now on, the troubled days are over. I mean, really over. Really over. Why? Because of one person. Do you know who? Joseph. Joseph, who had a faith. Same thing with that 10 lepers. You know, that person saved, you know, the troubled days are over now because of that faith. I'm not talking about the faith that, you know, Bible believing. I mean, that, not only that, but that mindset, that tender heart. But when they told him everything Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the cart Joseph had sent to carry him back, the spirit of their father Joseph revived. And Israel said, now, it's not no more Jacob. His Bible is very, very sensitive. You know, verse 27 through 28 change from Jacob to Israel. And Israel said, I am convinced my son Joseph is still alive. I will go and see him before I die. You know, to wrap up everything, you know, life sometimes can be very difficult. Some people have a really terrible life. I just happened to watch a series called Messiah in Netflix. And I see these people and go, oh my goodness, every single person have just terrible life, including the pastor who was about to burn down the church. I mean, I'm looking at and say, wow, that's just a terrible life. And we all seek we all seek peace and happiness, don't we? In our family, in my life, relationship wise, we all seek this well-being. Well-being. You know how it begins? How does the well-being of a person begins? By faith. By faith that was talked about in Luke chapter 17. Not the for faith, Jesus, you got, all that. That's a faith too. That's a Bible believing, that's a salvation faith. But the faith that brings the peace and happiness and joy in our personal life is that tender heart, giving thanks to God and remembering and pushing away the dire, pushing away the immediate things that I wanted to do. I want to go to temple and show off my clean skin, or I go back to my home. I go see my children. I go see my wife, my husband. But he pushed that away and say, I want to say God. I want to say thank you, God. I want to say that first. Now that's a tender heart. That's the action that produced by true faith. And that's why Jesus said, your faith has healed you. You are well now. You're well. And remember Jacob, this whole thing is Jacob's story, and Jacob's hard days are now over. We know that, because Joseph had forgiven. Joseph had forgiven all his brothers. Say, I forgive you. I don't have to revenge. I can give you revenge. Remember the humility of person? A person who yield the right? I would say 100% here, Joseph does have a right to revenge. And these 10 brothers do, they deserve revenge. Nobody would say, oh, revenge. Nobody would say that they do deserve that. But Joseph let go of that. Joseph let go of that. I can rightfully revenge you, and I have full capacity. I'm as big as Pharaoh, and I can revenge you. But I'm going to let go. Not only let go, I'm going to use my power to save my family. Every single one of you. He said, all my brothers who done wrong to me, I'm going to save you. Now that's humility. Isn't that what humility is all about? That's what basically Jesus did to all of us. That, every single one of us in here, if God revealed our wrongs, we would be forever condemned. I don't know about you, I'd be forever condemned. But God had forgiven me. God had forgiven. I'm not going to revenge you. I'm not going to punish you. If you just put the blood on your heart's doorpost, I'm going to pass you by. And we're all saved. I want to really say that, in 2020, I really do feel good things will happen. Amen? Big pumpkin to you. Yeah, big pumpkin. Who said that? Ethan said that. Big pumpkin to you. I do. I really believe that. But in order to get that pumpkin, do you know what we have to do? We have to have faith. That faith that produces these actions. We are all so selfish, and we just get what I want. If those 10 lepers, 9 lepers who went to a temple, yes, they'll be healed. And they're gone to homes. But sooner or later, their trouble will start, blossom again. Not through the leprosy, but all these relationship problems. And they have the same problem as you and I have. But the last one who came back, he wouldn't have that. Remember, his heart is tender. He's good enough to say, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you go. And if we do that, I think 2020 would be just a fantastic year. Amen? Turn to each other and say, I wish you well. I really do wish you well. Let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for bringing all of us here and gathering us here to hear the story of Joseph. Joseph had full capacity. He had rights to pay the pain back to his brothers. Revenge was in his hand, and he was able to. Yet, he didn't do it. He forgave all the people who'd done wrong to him. For 22 years, he felt the pain. He went through the pain. Yet he forgave them. And not only he forgave them, also he saved every single brothers who'd done wrong to him and gave them the best of the best. And his soul would be well. His soul would be healed. Lord, I ask you to give us that tender heart. Give me that tender heart. And when I feel like I have been wronged, wrongly accused, then my heart would be tender enough to say it's okay. I have God, and God is my Savior. And Lord, I ask you to bless all of us, that in 2020, that every single one of us sitting in this room would have a true peace and joy in our hearts. Thank you so much. Pray all this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Let's give God the glory. Turn to each other and say, I wish you well.